But to clarify, the book does not open by force. It opens the way morning opens a field inevitably, gently, fully. Pages turn like wings. Lines appear not as ink but as threads of light joining names to moments, histories to horizons. He recognizes how personal at Island, there is no mass entry, no anonymous lists. Each name stands as if it were the only name, attended by a care that would be impossible if love were anything less than infinite. He sees patterns he cannot fully hold, years braided into seasons, seasons braided into appointments, and among them, one appointment pulsing brighter than the rest. The date he has been shown before flares here again, not as a threat but as a boundary promised by love. August 31st of the year that now rushes upon the earth is written like a seal on a ribbon that ties this season closed. He feels the truth of it enter him the way light enters a room when the curtains are drawn. Not a notion, a certainty. A tidbit settles cleanly in his mind, a thing he will later say softly to those who ask. Many who come near death speak of a review, a seeing of life not as a list of events but as a tapestry of choices and their echoes, and they discover that love was always the thread that never broke. Standing before the book, he understands why those testimonies rhyme with this moment. The book remembers the same way the river remembers, but here remembrance resolves into decision. Records become reckonings, not to shame but to set things in true order. Across a page, he glimpses the bright edge of a name and flinches at a tenderness he did not expect. The tenderness is not sentimental. It feels like a surgeon's competence combined with a father's care. Where a life bent toward light, the line beside the name gleams. Where it bent away, the line dims as if tired. He wants to look further and cannot. The book is kind even in what it refuses to show. He understands that peering apart from purpose is a form of theft, and theft has no place here. He is given what will help him serve, nothing more. He senses time as a living stream beneath the pages, rumbling like a river under ice. The rumble gathers, and he knows that an hour measured not by clocks but by covenant is approaching. The thought does not fill him with panic. It clothes him with sobriety. He realizes that warning is a species of love, and that love would be cruel if it whispered reassurance when a gate was about to close. Names turn like constellations across the parchment of light. There is no confusion. No one is misfiled. No one is small. He learns by standing here a lesson he had not known he needed. The dignity of the soul is not a poetic line. It is a structural fact of the universe. To speak to anyone as if they are less than eternal is to lie. To remain silent while a season closes is also to lie. The pages shift, and he sees clusters of dates like fruit ripening on neighboring branches, moments of final offer woven into private hours, a late-night walk under sodium street lamps when a question rises uninvited, a pause at a chapel door when the hand almost turns the knob, a hospital quiet broken by a name, breathed without witness. He realizes how near God always walked, how precise mercy always island. It is not a flood that drowns discernment, it is a stream that knows the shape of each stone. He looks again at the seal of the season and feels the ache of a boy who would like to bargain for more summer. The coolness on his brow deepens, reminding him that bargaining misreads both justice and mercy. Mercy is not generous because it forgets to finish. It is generous because it finishes perfectly. A gate that never closes would not be mercy, it would be neglect. Gardens require fences to ripen. A fence is not an insult to fruit, it is its protection. He becomes aware of prayers as fine filaments running from the edges of the book outward, threading through rooms, streets, fields. The filaments carry a softness like wool at first wash, and wherever they pass, a page brightens. He follows a filament with his attention and finds it tied to a grandmother who fingers beads with a patience born of decades. Another is tied to a taxi driver who kills the engine for a minute near dawn and stares into the windshield until the silence says, "Turn back now." Another is tied to a student his own age who deletes a cruel sentence before pressing send, and in that small obedience begins to reroute a life. The book holds all of it without strain. He understands that intercession is not metaphor, it is mechanics. Prayers do not decorate time, they shape it. This knowledge humbles him deeper than any classroom humiliation ever did. He sees how often he had opted for clever over faithful, how often he had left rooms of mercy unopened, because speaking would have cost him cool. The hum in his chest answers with gentleness, not scolding. It leads him to acceptance, not shame. He senses the boundary of his role and learns another lesson. Mercy invites, never coerces. Love will carry a soul to the threshold, but not across it. Crossing, even here, is chosen. He looks back toward the hall's entrance and sees how it aligns with the river he left moments ago. The currents out there push people here, the doors in here open people there, the geometry is precise, choices etch their routes, and mercy overlays them with a path home. Not a bypass, not a loophole, a path. Clean and honest. He sees that forgiveness here does not erase truth, it perfects it. It does not rewrite a life, it rightly orders it toward the one who wrote life at all. A sudden soft ringing spreads through the hall, like glasses singing when a finger circles their rim. Doors swell with light in response. In bedrooms, in waiting rooms, in vehicles pulled to the shoulder under a bruised sky, someone remembers a name and breathes it. The chamber answers. You can almost feel your own skin gooseflesh at the thought that a whisper from anywhere can touch a door in a place like this. He asks within himself, with the innocence of a student, how many doors are left? The chamber does not give him numbers, it gives him the feeling of a clock. Not doom, not dread, a taper measured, a grace measured. A sense that the brightness swelling along the far wall marks an approaching hour. He senses that the pulse in each door follows two beats at once, the personal beat of a life, the cosmic beat of a season. When the season's beat completes, the doors answer to it. They do not slam, they stop opening. Hope and urgency braid tighter. He thinks of his friends who laugh at everything weighty, who toss away quiet invitations with a swipe and a scroll. He realizes how generous God has been, how he builds whole rooms in eternity for the smallest turn of a human heart, and he trembles at how casually a heart can ignore such rooms. Yet even trembling tastes like consolation here. The chamber will not let despair make a home. He moves again, and a last series of rooms opens like pages in a family album. A grandmother fingers a rosary until sleep takes her, but the prayer goes on without her mouth. A nurse pauses between alarms and asks to be forgiven for a hardness that her job taught her. A teenager deletes a cruel comment unsent and feels a strange warmth like rescue. These are small turns, but the hall treats them as pillars. In the kingdom, small is never small. The brightness at the far wall deepens. It is not threat, it is boundary. Boundaries make gardens possible. Without them, nothing ripens, everything runs to seed. He understands that what is coming is not an insult to mercy, but its completion. Love is most itself when it keeps its promises, and a promise has been set in time. He does not know the chapter after the promise, only that the promise ends a certain chapter. This knowledge lays on him like a mantle. He accepts it. He stands still at the center of the hall, and the three gentle forms circle once more the shawl of nearness, the hum in the bones, the table's faint sweetness, and they settle him. If a calling could be a resting place, this would be it. To warn is not to scold. It is to prepare a chair for someone you love before night falls. He can already see himself back among assignments and cafeteria lines, speaking in a voice that shakes and steadying in the speaking. You feel him resolve, the way a note finds its key. He does not bargain for a different task. He does not ask to stay, though everything in him wishes to. He gathers the chamber's music into a sentence he will carry like fire. The doors are open now, not forever now, and now is merciful. The hall dims by a shade as if to say, remember. He remembers. The pulse of a fixed day drums softly through the light. He bows no knees, yet a bow all the same, and lets the shawl slip from his shoulders, not because he rejects comfort, but because he will need his hands free to carry it to others. You feel the chamber hush as if a tide has paused mid-breath, and from that hush a smaller room unfolds, no door, no hinges, only a yielding brightness, like silk parting for a child's hand. At the center rests a book so vast it seems to be the room's own heartbeat, its cover a living glow that shimmers between gold and clear water. The light it gives is not harsh, it is a steady dawn. Arav understands without being told. This is where mercy counts time. He draws closer, and the first gentle form meets him as a coolness across the brow, the way evening air comforts a fevered forehead. It calms his urge to run, steadies the tremor in his spirit, and teaches stillness by giving it. The second gentle form arrives as a low, warm thrum in the chest, a mother's hum folded into the bones, inviting courage without drama. The third comes as a faint sweetness in the mouth, like the clean taste of spring water after a long thirst. It says that what is written here is not written to crush, to shake them awake. But the river did not allow interference. It allowed only witness. And you feel it now, don't you? that ache of seeing those you love drifting without knowing how close the edge truly island. The reminder that silence is dangerous, that speaking, however awkward, however mocked, is always better than saying nothing. The current grew louder, almost like a storm. Jesus pointed toward the glowing bend ahead, where the 31st of August pulsed like fire. When the gate closes, the river can no longer be redirected. Tell them, Arav. Tell them every choice counts. Those words struck into his marrow like iron. He saw faces again, his best friend's laughter, his mother's gentle warnings, strangers who passed by in streets all drifting, unaware of the countdown. His heart burned with urgency he could no longer ignore. The river split violently, waves thrashing between light and shadow. The roar echoed louder than any crowd, louder than the sirens he had once faintly heard at the basketball court. And in that roar was truth. Time is fragile, choice is eternal, mercy limited. Arav's knees buckled, though he no longer had knees. He fell into surrender, tears flowing as freely as the river. He whispered, "Then I will tell them. Even if they laugh, even if I am nothing, I will tell them." And the river itself seemed to brighten, as though eternity had received his vow. You feel him enter a hush so soft it could be mistaken for sleep, yet everything sharpens. The river's roar thins into a thread and leads him into a hall that is not built but breathed walls like living crystal, floors like pooled dawn, air that holds him the way a mother steadies a child's first steps. This is the chamber of mercy. It does not announce itself, it welcomes. Its light does not blind, it beckons. Hope rises first clean, steady, unmistakable yet braided with urgency, like a bell sounding from far across water. Doors line the expanse, each one the size of a human story, each one glowing with a patient pulse. Some shine openly, others pulse faint and slow, as if the flame within them is down to its last wick. Arav moves through them as through a garden of hearts, and you move with him quiet, small, reverent, because here everything is personal, nothing is statistical in this place. Each door holds a name, and each name is loved. The first gentle form greets him as warmth like a shawl set across his shoulders. It is not heat, it is nearness. Nearness that tells the soul it is not alone at the edge. The second gentle form arrives as a low hum in the bones, like the last chord of a hymn that never quite ends. The third is a breath of sweetness, the faintest trace of bread and rain, the scent of a table always set and never empty. Together they say what words would take too long to say. Mercy is not paperwork, it is presence. He reaches toward a door, and the chamber understands him before he understands himself. The panel softens like wax touched by a candle, and opens to a room made of memory. A man kneels on a bedroom floor while a bedside lamp throws a circle of gold across a worn rug. His hands tremble. He has postponed tenderness for decades and finds, to his surprise, that it is still offered. The room brightens as something inside him turns, not dramatically, not with eloquence, but with consent. Consent is the hinge of this chamber. Consent is the key. Another door opens at his nearness. There, a hospital monitor keeps its patient metronome, and a young woman stares at ceilings pebbled with shadow. Her lips barely move. There is no audience, no performance, only a small will rising like a candle flame 7 breaths from going out. The room listens. Heaven listens. And the door of mercy flares once, then steadies. You feel it in your chest, that relief, when even the smallest yes is not small here. Arav turns slowly, taking in rows upon rows, a horizon of chances. He understands a little more. The chamber is not infinite. It is tender, it is lavish, but it is ordered. Mercy is not a mood, it is a season. Seasons end so that harvest can begin. The tidbit of knowledge plants itself cleanly in him. Last moment turning is real, but it is not guaranteed by time, it is offered by love. Delay gambles with a calendar no one owns. He steps toward a door pulsing as if from very far away. It opens onto a kitchen where a widower rinses a cup long after midnight. The sink's water runs thin. He has spent years talking to the quiet, but tonight the quiet talks back not in words, in clarity. He sets the cup down. His shoulders shake once, then still. He breathes out an old defense and breathes in a new beginning. The chamber brightens around that breath, as if exhaling with him. Here and there a door dims. Not slammed, not locked, just failing. Arav feels a jolt of grief. The faint ones are not beyond reach, but their wick is starving. He reaches as if reaching would feed it. He cannot force a flame, he can only witness that it is worth saving. Each thread braided into the clock's gears, feeding its relentless movement. He realized time was not mechanical, it was moral. Every choice tilted its weight into eternity's balance. You feel this tug now, don't you? That the ticking of your own life is not neutral. It records, it shapes, it flows into streams unseen. And yet mercy delays judgment, giving space for one more prayer, one more heart to turn. Arav's spirit ached. He wanted to stay, to keep watching, but the vision pressed further. Jesus lifted his hand and showed him prayers rising like sparks from bedrooms, chapels, even hospital beds. Each spark slowed the clock's hand, giving mercy a moment longer. But then he showed hardened hearts, lives clinging to pride, mocking truth, delaying repentance. Those shadows forced the hand forward, accelerating the countdown. Arav cried within, "So what can I do? I'm just one voice." Jesus' gaze grew firm yet tender. "You will speak, and my spirit will move. Do not measure by numbers. Even if one listens, it is worth it." The vision swelled brighter. The clock's thunder deepened, and then Jesus spoke with finality. The moment marked, the 31st of August 2025, cannot be stopped. It is sealed. The words struck like lightning, and Arav shook as though every atom in him resonated with their weight. This was no vague prophecy. It was a decree. The light dimmed slightly, and once more he saw the earth fragile, beautiful, unprepared. Millions moved about, unaware of the clock above their heads. And now you feel it too, don't you? That shiver at the thought of living each day as if endless, while eternity has already drawn the line. Jesus' hand lingered on his shoulder. His voice softened, almost grieving. That is not for you to carry now. You are to carry the warning, the last chance. Arav bowed his head, overwhelmed. He realized then that eternity does not speak in riddles. It speaks plainly, but only to those willing to listen. And his mission was simple, terrifying and holy, to return and cry out before the date was upon them. The thunder of the clock faded into silence, and Arav felt himself lowered once more, drifting into a place neither earth nor heaven fully claimed. Before him stretched the river again, shimmering with impossible clarity, its surface alive with human stories. This time, it flowed louder, as though eternity itself pressed him to understand. He stepped closer, drawn not by curiosity but by burden. The water reflected choices, every ripple carrying echoes of lives, laughter that built up others, words that wounded, prayers whispered in dark nights, sins hidden yet unforgotten. The river was not judging, it was revealing. It was the ledger of free will written in flowing light, and you can sense it now, can't you? Every small decision you thought vanished is still flowing somewhere, shaping the direction of your soul. Downstream, the river split again, one side glowing like dawn breaking, waves spilling into a radiant sea of welcome. The other darkened into shadows, waters collapsing into an abyss that swallowed light whole. Arav's spirit trembled as he realized, no one stood still here. Every life flowed, one way or the other. Neutrality did not exist in eternity's current. Faces appeared once more, shimmering across the waters. They were young, his age, perhaps younger. A girl laughed with friends, her hair catching sunlight, yet in her reflection he saw emptiness behind her smile. A boy flexed his muscles, joking in the gym, but the river showed his loneliness tucked behind pride. These were his classmates, people he had walked with, studied with, passed in the hallway without thought. Tears welled within him. "They don't know," he whispered again, voice breaking. Jesus stood beside him, his presence anchoring like gravity. Yes, the youth are at the edge of decision. Many believe they have years to wander, but eternity does not wait. The words struck like hammers on fragile glass. For the first time, Arav realized the urgency was not only for distant nations, it was for his friends, the ones who teased him in class, the ones who shared food in the cafeteria, the ones who thought they had endless time. He cried out, "Why me? Why would they listen to me?" Jesus' eyes burned with both tenderness and fire. "Because I chose you. I do not look at age or strength. I look at the heart." The certainty in his tone shattered Arav's excuses. He felt his chest tighten, not with fear but with responsibility. This wasn't a story to admire, it was a burden to carry. The river shifted again, and suddenly Arav saw faces not just from his college, but from across nations' youth, scrolling on their phones, ignoring the tug in their souls, parents weighed down with work, forgetting eternity's pull, elders staring into the distance with quiet regret. The waters carried them all, their choices steering them unknowingly toward light or shadow. Erav's spirit broke. He wanted to reach into the current, to grab them. Jesus' eyes softened. That is why you are shown this. You will return among them, but not as before. You will see what others cannot, and you must tell them. Erav's voice cracked with weakness. But I'm only one student. Why would they listen to me? The answer came firm, unwavering. Because I chose you. I do not look at status or age. I look at the heart, and I know yours. The weight of those words settled into him like stone, heavy but undeniable. He thought of the canteen, the chatter of youth, the endless scrolling on phones, the jokes that made faith seem small. His heart ached for them now, knowing how fragile the veil truly was. It burned inside him not condemnation, but longing. He wanted to reach them before the river carried them past the point of no return. The vision did not stop. Jesus stretched out his hand, and the scene shifted into a vast chamber, carved not from stone but from light itself. Its walls shimmered like crystal, lined with countless doors glowing faintly. Erav stepped closer, curiosity mingling with awe. What is this place? His thought barely formed before the answer came. This is the Chamber of Mercy, a place prepared for those who, even at the last moment, turn back to me. He touched one glowing door, and it opened. Inside, he saw a man kneeling alone in his bedroom, whispering prayers through tears. Another door revealed a young woman on her hospital bed, barely able to breathe, yet calling his name. Erav whispered in awe. Even in their last breath, they can still find you. Jesus smiled gently. Yes, my mercy is not small, but the chamber is not infinite. A day comes when the doors will close. The words pierced him deeper than any sword. The 31st of August, 2025. The date flashed again, this time seared into the walls of light themselves. His voice trembled. After that day, Jesus' face grew solemn. After that, what remains is judgment, not mercy. Hope and sorrow mingled within him like oil and water. Hope, because the doors still glowed with welcome. Sorrow, because the countdown was fixed and every delay carried eternal weight. He realized the message was not just a vision for his memory, it was a burden meant to be carried into the noise of life, into classrooms and hallways, into cities and nations. You feel it now too, the urgency pressing not as fear but as love. The doors of mercy are still open, the river of choices still flowing. But the gate is closing. And when it does, eternity will honor what every heart has chosen already. The chamber of mercy shimmered around him, doors glowing with gentle light, each one representing a soul that had turned back in time. Yet as Arav watched, some doors flickered faintly, as though their glow was fading. His heart clenched. He whispered, "So little time." And Jesus, with sorrow lining his voice like soft thunder, replied, "Enough time, if they listen. But many will not." The vision shifted again, pulling him higher, further. The river dissolved, the chamber faded, and suddenly Arav stood above the earth once more. The colossal clock returned, suspended over the world, its hands alive with fire and galaxies. But now he saw it differently. Every nation glowed beneath, every home flickered with light or shadow, as though the prayers and choices of humanity themselves fed into the gears of time. Some cities pulsed brightly, radiant with cries of faith rising like incense. Others lay dim, drowned in apathy, their shadows pushing the second hand forward. And you can feel this truth echoing even now. Your choices matter. Every whispered prayer slows the hand, every hardened heart hastens it. Yet no matter the struggle, the day marked cannot be delayed. Arav trembled as the hand leapt forward, striking sparks as it neared a bend of fire. Jesus' voice wrapped around him, calm yet urgent. This bend is August 2025. The hand will not pass it unchanged. He gasped, asking, "Why that moment? Why then?" Jesus' eyes grew deep with grief. "Because I set times and seasons for mercy. This season is closing." The weight of that declaration pressed on him like stone. He wanted to cry out, to beg for more time, to plead for years. But Jesus looked into him with firmness. They think they have years, but years are illusions. They only have choices. Tell them. The earth beneath pulsed, and Arav saw lives unfolding. Students like him scrolling their phones, parents rushing to work, families laughing at dinner tables. Over all of them, the giant clock thundered, unseen yet inescapable. He longed to shout into the world's noise, to wake them, but his voice stayed locked in his spirit. Jesus pressed a hand to his shoulder, and Arav understood. This voice was not meant to echo here in the vision, it was meant to echo through him when he returned. The clock's face rippled, transforming into a stream of living light that curved downward. From its flow, Arav glimpsed threads of time, moments of kindness, moments of cruelty, decisions made in silence. The words were not syllables, they were living currents, flowing into the marrow of his being. His entire awareness shook as the declaration settled inside him. He was chosen, not because of merit or achievement, but because God chooses freely, seeing hearts rather than status. And you sense the weight of this, that divine appointments are not about ability, but about willingness. The tunnel's silence broke open as visions poured in. He saw calendars flipping, months dissolving like ash in water, numbers blurred into streams of fire. Then one date glowed brighter than all, the 31st of August, 2025. It pulsed like the heartbeat of the universe. Jesus' voice, steady and sorrowful, cut through the vision. That is the last chance. The door will not remain open forever. Arav trembled, his mind staggered with the weight of it. Last chance for what? The answer came, sharper than thunder yet tender as rain. For hearts to choose me before the night falls. Many delay, thinking there is more time. There is not. The urgency pressed like a storm into his chest. You feel it even now, don't you? That pull between disbelief and conviction, between dismissing the message and knowing deep down that eternity does not play with empty warnings. He had no doubt this was truth, not symbol. A countdown had been carved into existence itself. Jesus' hand lifted, and suddenly the vision widened. Arav stood above the earth, cities glowing like embers across a dark canvas. Over the planet hung a colossal clock, not metal, not mechanical, but alive. Galaxies formed its gears, fire and light made its hands. The second hand moved faster than he could bear to watch. He gasped, recognizing time not as human invention but divine creation. Jesus spoke again. Every prayer slows the hand. Every hardened heart pushes it forward. But the moment marked cannot be stopped. It is sealed. Arav's spirit quivered. He whispered, "Then what happens after?" Jesus' gaze deepened with sorrow. "That is not for you to carry. You are to carry the warning, the last chance." Imagine standing there yourself, watching the world beneath, knowing a date has been fixed that cannot be moved. The weight of it presses into you even now. That urgency is not fear for its own sake. It is love that refuses to stay silent while the door is still open. Jesus' hand touched Arav's shoulder. The warmth was both fire and water, burning yet soothing. In that moment, Arav knew he could not escape this calling. He was not only a witness, he was a messenger. And you, hearing his story now, are not just an observer, you are a participant. For the message spoken to him flows also to you. The 31st of August 2025 is the last chance. Not as superstition, not as poetry, but as a living word branded into eternity. You move with him as the vision expands, stretching wider than any horizon his earthly eyes had ever known. The earth lay beneath, fragile, spinning under the weight of choices. The colossal clock loomed above it, gears alive, seconds burning like sparks. Its hands moved too quickly, each sweep echoing the urgency of souls running out of time. Jesus' voice was steady, but within it was a sorrow that pressed like thunderclouds before rain. Time is my creation. Humans believe they control it, but they do not. They only walk upon it. The words entered Arav's spirit as truth that could not be debated. He had lived as though hours were endless coins, freely spent. Now he understood every tick was grace, every moment mercy extended a little longer. The vision shifted. The clock's fire bent into a river, flowing below him with impossible clarity. Its waters shimmered, carrying reflections of faces, choices, destinies. Some streams poured into the river like molten gold, glowing brighter with every ripple. Others dripped like ink, staining the current, dragging light downward. Arav leaned closer, and his chest tightened. The water mirrored back fragments of his own life. Prideful laughter, careless words, times when he ignored whispers of conscience. The river knew him, and as he watched, he understood this river knew everyone. Jesus' gaze was gentle but unyielding. Choices echo into eternity. The words rang like bells, clear and unbroken. Downstream, Arav saw the river split into two paths. On one side, a radiant sea stretched brighter than the sun itself, light pouring out in waves of welcome. On the other, the water vanished into shadow, consumed without trace. His soul shuddered as realization struck. This was the end of all choices, the unveiling of what every heart had already decided. Faces emerged in the flowing current, and Arav gasped. They were not strangers. They were classmates, the girl who laughed in the hallway but carried emptiness in her eyes, the boy who wore strength like a mask while crying in secret. Their images rippled across the water, vulnerable and exposed. They don't know, Arav whispered in his spirit, trembling. They don't know how real this island. He sees a younger version of himself choosing silence when kindness asked to be spoken, choosing applause when humility would have been stronger medicine. The corridor does not punish him for this, it invites release. He lets them go and feels lighter. He suspects that everything weightless in him is what will last. You keep pace with his slowing and see that the tunnel is not empty space. It is populated by the work of mercy. Along its walls, a word that only helps imperfectly patterns ripple, like scripture written in light. He cannot read it with eyes that are no longer needed, yet he understands it the way one understands a lullaby sung in childhood. Meaning enters first, words arrive later. Mercy says, "Be made simple." Mercy says, "Set down what is not you." Beyond the soft turn ahead, the brightness gathers. It is not a single point but a swelling field, as if dawn had been multiplied and layered until it became a presence. Arav senses personality in the light before he recognizes identity. Personality here means gaze, and gaze means to be known without 1 inch of hiding. He does not shrink from it. A new kind of trembling begins, not panic but reverence. The pride that flinches when corrected has already melted. All that remains is a readiness to be told the truth by truth himself. He recognizes that he stands at the hinge between two ways of being. On the near side, noise, hurry, clocks, and the honorable bustle of young life. On the far side, a kingdom where everything breathes purpose and nothing wastes the breath it receives. He hesitates not from doubt, but from the awe one feels at the edge of an ocean before the first step in. You know this feeling in small ways, the hush before you enter a church, the pause before you speak a vow, the breath you take when you finally forgive. Multiply that by a horizon, and you have the silence at this threshold. The brightness breathes again, no lungs, yet the rhythm comforts and his spirit aligns to it the way a boat aligns to a tide. He understands, still without syllables, that he is being invited, not seized. Consent matters even here. Free will was not a small experiment on Earth. It is a door mechanism installed by love. He leans his desire forward. The corridor answers with greater light. He drifts, and the border becomes porous. The difference between travel and arrival narrows to a hair's width. The awe inside him matures into a calm readiness. He senses that he is about to meet a presence more personal than his own thoughts, more intimate than his own pulse, and yet vast enough to hold the galaxies that once looked down on his small campus court. He does not know what will be asked. He only knows that whatever is asked will be good, because the goodness ahead is not an idea, it is a person. You breathe with him slow, even, unforced, and accept what the corridor has taught. Fear cannot shepherd you into truth, but awe can. Arav crosses the last span of not quite time. The brightness resolves from field to face, from dawn to encounter. He does not speak with lips that he no longer needs. Instead, his whole being leans forward like a kneeling motion taught from within. The boundary of death is behind him now, a door he will remember as the softest kind of threshold, because on the far side of it he finally knows what every hour was pointing toward. The light receives him, and the silence deepens in welcome. The brightness was not only light, it was life itself, pulsing, breathing, drawing everything toward it. Arav felt smaller than a grain of sand, yet more known than he had ever been in his 19 short years. The figure formed, radiant yet clear, not hidden in mist or shadow. The face did not need an introduction. His heart, his very being, whispered the name before his thoughts could form it. Jesus. You can almost feel the moment with him, the trembling of standing before the one presence that silences every question. He fell inwardly, as though knees bent though his body was gone. Reverence was the only posture possible. Waves of warmth swept through him, not heat that burns, but warmth that heals. Every scar on his soul, every bruise from shame, every secret ache melted as though the light itself carried medicine. Jesus looked at him, and in that gaze, Arav understood oceans without words. There was no accusation, no dismissal, only an embrace so total that he wondered if he had ever been loved at all before this. And yet, there was something else: urgency. You know the difference, don't you? When a parent calls with tenderness but also with fire. Because danger is close and delay is costly. That is how the gaze felt. Love unmeasured, urgency undeniable. Arav whispered from within his spirit, "Why me? Why am I here?" But the answer came not as an explanation but as a commission. Jesus' presence pressed into him, firm yet tender. Because you must carry what many will ignore. You will return, but not empty. You will return with a message. And with it came an embrace of peace that whispered, "Let go." So he did. He surrendered, not as defeat but as release. And as he let go, freedom surged through him. For the first time, he knew what it meant to exist without weight, without pain, without the constant ticking of earthly time. And you, as you listen, can feel that echo in your own chest, the reminder that one day you too will face that moment of crossing. The fear will tempt you, but peace is waiting if your heart is ready. For Arav, this was only the beginning. The tunnel stretched brighter ahead, and at its end waited a presence his spirit already knew, though his mind had not yet named it. You move with him, as if your own breath slows to match the rhythm of a world you cannot see but somehow remember. The tunnel is not a shape so much as a sensation, a corridor woven from stillness that hums, from color that breathes, from nearness that feels like a hand on the shoulder without weight. Arav drifts through it, and, strangely, nothing inside him screams to turn around. Awe takes the place of fear, and it settles like warm rain across a desert that has waited a long time for water. He is 19 in memory only. Here the years peel away like thin film, and what remains is the person beneath all the noise, the one God has always known. The first gentle form appears as light that does not glare. It rests upon him like soft cloth, cool at the edges, warm at the center, wrapping his spirit in reassurance. He senses that this place does not devour, it refines. Edges he carried through adolescence begin to smooth, the blush of pride, the habit of hurry, the tiny grudges that stick like burrs to the soul. One by one, they loosen. Regret does not accuse him here. It dissolves, as if regret itself were tired of being heavy. The tunnel does not rush him. Time loosens its grip the way a tight fist opens finger by finger. Arav remembers the court, the shouting, the press of hands on his chest, and realizes that the ticking he once lived by was a small clock set inside a larger one. He had measured days by assignments and alarms. Now he moves inside a silence that measures things by meaning. And you feel this too, because you have been pinned to earthly minutes. And yet you know instinctively that minutes cannot hold a soul. The second gentle form arrives as soundlessness that speaks. There is no voice, and yet knowledge pours in like spring water. He understands, without syllables, that he is not lost. He is crossing. The corridor is not a trap, it is a threshold, a passage crafted with care for travelers who must shed what cannot be carried into the country of the real. The lesson is simple and new all at once. You cannot bring pretense where truth lives without shadows. He had never planned to meet eternity between classes and a sports event, and yet eternity does not ask for appointments. It opens when it wills, and mercy meets those who arrive surprised. Arav tests his form out of habit, lifting what would once be a hand. It shines as if made of water captured in sunlight. He is not flesh, but he is not nothing. He is himself distilled to essence. The corridor reacts to him, hues deepening as if answering a quiet prayer he does not remember praying. He moves forward without feet, guided by a pull that is gentle and unarguable. The pull is not a command, it is welcome. A tidbit tucks itself into your awareness, the kind that researchers whisper about and testimonies repeat. Many who near this border speak of a tunnel, of light, of release from the body, of a love that feels like being recognized completely. Here, those threads interlace into a single fabric. He is recognized. The corridor knows his shape the way a glove knows a hand it was sewn to fit. He glances back, though the word glance no longer fits. It is more like turning a thought. The court is a blur now. Students like moths around a porch light, frantic and brave. His mother is a small brightness, moving toward a siren's cry. Compassion rises in him, not the guilty ache that twists and blames, but a cleaner tenderness. He wants to calm them, and discovers the first law of this passage. Love deepens even as attachment loosens. He belongs to them, yet he also belongs to the one who is drawing him. Both are true, and the second truth is becoming brighter. The third gentle form arrives as fragrance without air. It reminds him of rain on parched ground, of linen dried in a sunlit room, of the first breath taken after tears stop. If peace had a scent, it would be this. It weaves itself through the corridor's shimmer, and with it comes a memory he cannot place, like something learned before birth. He realizes that fear has nowhere to anchor here. What can fear grasp when the self is no longer threatened? Layers fall. Not memories, those remain, luminous and sordid, but the clinging film on them. Embarrassment, defensiveness, the stories he told to protect an image, though at that moment he didn't fully know it. All he knew was that he was leaving behind what once felt permanent. The hoodie, the backpack, the assignments, the chatter of friends, none of it mattered here. Only awareness, only presence, only the trembling awe of stepping into eternity before he was even old enough to comprehend it. And you, listening to his story now, can feel the echo of it, because deep down you already know time is fragile. Every sunrise is not guaranteed. Every heartbeat is a gift. And what happened to Arav on that seemingly ordinary morning could happen to any of us when the gate opens unexpectedly. The court was chaos. Students huddled around, voices cracking with panic, some dialing numbers with shaking hands, others pressing against his chest, shouting for him to wake up. Yet while their cries rose into the air, Arav was already slipping where their voices could no longer reach. You have seen this before, perhaps at a funeral or in the stillness of a hospital room, how a body lies heavy, but the presence that gave it warmth has gone elsewhere. Arav felt no weight. His breath had stopped, but his spirit flowed freer than wind. He hovered above the scene, looking at his own body sprawled on the concrete. His lips were pale, his skin drained, yet he did not feel trapped. Instead, there was release, like loosening chains you never knew were binding you. That first moment of separation always carries surprise. You realize you are not the body you've cared for so much. You are more. The shouts blurred into a soundless hum, like waves rolling against a faraway shore. He could see his friends' tears glistening, their hands trembling as they tried to hold him in place. And still, he whispered softly, "I think I'm leaving." The words didn't escape his lips, but his spirit spoke them in calm surrender. You can feel that strange paradox: peace in the midst of panic, clarity in the middle of collapse. Then came the pull. Not harsh, not violent, but firm and irresistible. It was like gravity had shifted direction, tugging not downward but inward, into a depth beyond sight. He drifted slowly, rising yet not rising, moving without steps, carried into a silence thicker than anything Earth had ever given him. The basketball court stretched away, dissolving into mist. The sounds of sirens in the distance, the cries of his mother rushing to the scene, even the echo of his own name being screamed, all of it faded. The air itself changed. It shimmered, alive, carrying him through layers of reality that felt as delicate as silk and as vast as the universe. He tried to glance back, and what he saw pierced him with both sorrow and relief. His body was now only a shell. His classmates shook it, begged it, tried to call it back, but the true Arav was no longer there. He wanted to reach out to comfort them, but he understood. They could not hear him anymore. It is in this moment that fear often grips those who cross, but not Arav. Instead of terror, an unearthly calm wrapped around him. The weight of exams, of unfinished dreams, of tomorrow's plans, they all melted away. He realized how small those things were when eternity opened its hands. You know this truth too, though you often ignore it. So much of what consumes your mind today will vanish like smoke when the curtain is pulled back. Ahead stretched something that looked like a tunnel, yet it was unlike anything he had known. It wasn't carved from stone or built with walls. It was alive, woven from vibrations, shimmering with colors that pulsed like breath. It whispered without words, calling him deeper. Each movement forward felt as though parts of him were being shed, regrets falling off, guilt dissolving, fears turning to dust. The further he drifted, the lighter he became, as if the tunnel itself was cleansing his soul. He tried to ask aloud, "Is this death?" But before he could finish, an answer stirred from within, not from a mouth or a voice, but from the silence itself. "No, this is awakening. Imagine yourself there. You walk, yet you do not walk. You breathe, yet there is no air. You feel, yet your body is gone. And the silence, it is not emptiness, but fullness, as if every star and every ocean has been drawn into one soundless breath. That is what Arav felt. The tunnel stretched without end, and yet every inch of it pulsed with a sense of direction, a knowing that he was being led somewhere. He reached out his hand, if it could be called a hand, and it glowed transparent, shimmering like water touched by sunlight. No longer flesh, but spirit. He marveled at it, feeling more alive than he had ever felt on earth. Behind him, faintly, he still saw the world he once belonged to. The blurred court, the gathering of students, the cry of his mother collapsing onto her knees. His chest ached with longing for a brief moment. Should he go back? Should he fight to stay? But then the tunnel's pull grew stronger. My name is Arav Malhotra, and what I'm about to share will sound impossible, but every word is true. I was an ordinary student until one day everything collapsed in front of me. I crossed a boundary no human expects to cross at such a young age. I encountered Jesus, and he gave me a message with urgency. The 31st of August, 2025 is your last chance. These words weren't vague or poetic. They were crystal clear. I'm writing this because he told me to. You may not believe me now, but by the end you'll understand why. My name is Arav Malhotra. The morning began like any other, yet a heaviness pressed against Arav Malhotra's chest, though he couldn't explain it. He was only 19, still more boy than man, a student wrapped in the everyday rhythm of college life. He pulled on his hoodie, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and stepped out into the streets still dazed from sleep. The world outside looked harmless, just another sunrise stretching its arms across the sky, but you can feel how eternity sometimes hides behind an ordinary dawn. The breeze brushed his face, cool and unassuming, while his phone glowed in his hand, distracting his gaze from the silent pull that had already begun. His mother's voice lingered in memory, "Don't skip breakfast." She had said it casually, like she always did, but today the words echoed heavier than usual. He ignored them with a laugh, thinking there would always be another morning, another chance to eat, another chance to live. You know this feeling you go about your day unaware that somewhere beyond, a clock is already ticking down to the moment your story will shift forever. College smelled of coffee and damp notebooks, the chatter of friends rising and falling like background music. Arav walked among them with a smile, yet he felt a strange hollowness that others could sense but not name. His friend nudged him in the lecture hall, whispering that he looked pale. He laughed it off, hiding the truth that something deeper was already unraveling. You have done this too. Haven't you pretended everything was fine, while your spirit quietly trembled with a warning you couldn't put into words? The lecture dragged on, voices fading into a muffled hum. He blinked, and for a moment the room itself seemed to melt. The lights, the faces, even the sound of pens scratching against paper, all of it blurred, as though he were peering through water. His body still sat in the chair, but his awareness slipped into another layer. You can almost see it, the thin veil, invisible yet closer than your breath, pulling him into what few ever glimpse while still alive. Later that day, the ordinary continued to disguise itself as normal. Students laughed around the basketball court, sneakers squeaking, whistles blowing, the sun glaring overhead. Arav stood at the edge, helping organize, waving at friends, blending into the noise. But inside, he already knew this day would not end like the others. That knowledge grew louder with every heartbeat, like footsteps approaching behind him, unseen yet undeniable. Then came the moment so small, yet it broke his entire existence in two. A sudden locking in his chest, not like stabbing pain, more like an unseen hand pulling the plug of his life from within. His knees buckled. A voice shouted his name. Hands tried to catch him. The ground rushed up to meet his body, and in that instant, the boy who had laughed only seconds before was suspended between two worlds. The sunlight burned into his eyes, but strangely, it no longer hurt. His breath thinned, slower, softer, until it vanished, but he was still there. His classmates panicked, pressing his hand, calling for help, begging him to stay. Yet from within, he whispered, "I think I'm leaving." Imagine that peaceful acceptance in the face of collapse, because sometimes the soul knows what the mind cannot. He saw his body crumpled on the ground, friends surrounding it, voices distorted like echoes underwater. He tried to reach, but his hands no longer felt like flesh. They glimmered like light, transparent, alive in ways he had never known before. The basketball court itself began to fade, mist rising like a curtain. You feel it now, don't you? That shiver that tells you this isn't just a story, it's the reminder of how thin the line really island. He hovered, not above nor below, but somewhere beyond. The world he knew became smaller, more distant, as if he had stepped into a silence older than creation. His heartbeat was gone, but his awareness sharpened. He was not dead. He was crossing. You may think death is an ending, but in moments like these, it feels more like stepping through an unseen doorway. He drifted forward, carried not by his will, but by something greater, a pull soft yet unstoppable. The laughter, the shouting, the chaos behind him dulled into whispers, then into silence. All that remained was an expanding quiet, vast enough to swallow every fear. This was the beginning of his journey,